Hello, my name is Yvette Licerio, and this is my presentation for my senior project. I decided to go with hand-painted animation backgrounds. That would be for a pilot episode. So for phase one, which was the brainstorming phase, I had two initial ideas. The first one was character design, and the second one was background design. So the first idea was to create a trio of new villains for a Sonic the Hedgehog game because I thought it'd just give me a little bit more of a challenge for like creating new characters, especially based on animals, as these characters usually are. I think it was a viable idea because it would bring new interest, excuse me, it would bring new interest to a new game when people see a series that they already enjoy and they want something new. Assuming they want new characters, new storyline. So I figured that would be a good viable idea for this first idea. The second idea was hand-painted background designs. That would be forest designs, some backyard settings, and I believe like two neighborhood settings. Hand-painted for me was a viable idea because it can coexist very well with digital outline and digital work on top, as it's been done very well before. My biggest inspiration was SpongeBob SquarePants. As you can see in this top image, you can see a lot of the paint strokes in the background and on the floor. That fish decor and like the couch and the seat, you can like really see the paint strokes on it. And then it's altered digitally on top of that. So it was like a huge inspiration to want to do hand painted backgrounds and also put together my love for traditional art and digital. So for phase two, which was to identify, I did identify that I wanted to do the hand painted background, of course. So the chosen medium for this project was gouache paint on white paper, and it was going to give the texture that I was looking for in a hand painted background, kind of like you saw the one in the previous slide. And then once scanned, I would then outline digitally. And there's going to be a total of five backgrounds. So I would do five different scenes, all hand painted and altered digitally. Here is a swatch page of the colors I decided to go with or was more leaning towards. The project scope of this, again, so it's five background designs, um, which would not include the actual animation itself. It was just going to be a total of five PNG files for the backgrounds required by the client. This was my initial mood board for the background designs. All of these images to me were giving the outdoorsy backgrounds that I was inspired by in like animated films and like TV. And it's also the kind of style I feel I also share. So I wanted to implement similar to this into my own style for backgrounds. I loved the summer palette that I have inserted here. I love these greens and browns, especially for like the forest scenes. Um, I also really enjoyed the simplicity of a lot of these backgrounds while still giving it the texture. So it's like simple, but like so textured that like it doesn't feel boring. So like in this scene with in the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, it's a very simple background and very like blobbed shapes, but the texture in the trees kind of really gives it that character. And then same with the Camp Lazlo images here. And even in Ed and Eddie, it's like very simple. It's like very flat, but there's still texture. And you can see the bricks and like on the trees, there's like these little spots here. And just kind of gives each show kind of has its own character and like its own kind of recognizable background. So phase four to ideate, I decided to just do some very simple pencil sketches and with these pencil sketches, I was just trying to figure out like the layout. I was making these thumbnails. I was trying to figure out how I wanted to characterize the trees. I love to kind of like stylize trees. Like I don't, as much as like I love realistic looking like imagery and like hand painted nature, I also love to just like over stylize and kind of like give it my own twist and also just make it look like more of a variety. Like I liked the different trees and like different tree shapes I had based off real trees, but obviously don't look like trees you see out in the wild. So I was trying to find like the composition and like how I wanted to like set up the scenes, the pathways. So this was all just me throwing my ideas down. And then with the um input that I got from everybody else. Obviously, they were looking for color, and I didn't really put in any color in my pencil sketches. So when I came to finally like moving forward with the idea further, I did add color. Obviously, as I was testing out the colors, I was testing out what worked together, what didn't. So this was like more of the development stage. And I was trying to find like the shades of green that I wanted, how I wanted to outline each one. Here is like my swatch page. I initially wanted to go with like a soft summer palette. I decided that felt more of like a indoor type scenes or like clothing even on actual characters. So I decided to go with a brighter like summer palette. So like these yellows and greens and blues up here, I really enjoyed. I was trying to figure out like tree branch colors and like to like which one correlates best with like the greens. So this was a lot of, again, like sketchbooking. This was me developing my ideas further. On my top sketchbook page here, I colored in these trees just with like marker. I was trying to figure out, again, the color palette. This was before I like fully swatched everything. These trees felt too autumnal and too like dark. So I was like, okay, I gotta brighten them. I want to make them a little bit more yellow toned. So on the next page, I used like brighter greens. Again, this was still like marker and like colored pencil. I was just trying to figure out what colors or like what colors I would have to mix to achieve these shades of green. And then down below, I started the actual like painting, um, and trying to like find these shades of green that I'm like looking for. Though I did end up going with, they also turn out a little bit darker than actual marker. So as it is, because they are different mediums, but they were still very much the shades of green I was looking for, and like that summer palette I'm looking for. These were the finished paintings all scanned in. This was before any alterations, any um, outline work. This was just all flat color that I painted. Um, Anything I wanted to fix was like on this top page where the trees like cross, you can see where I overlapped the green on top of the brown as I did do the branches first. And, when I overlap the green, you can like very clearly see through them. So that's like an alteration I wanted to do. I wasn't sure if I wanted to, I initially thought about bringing it into Photoshop and just like trying to fix it from there. Um, but I didn't really want to lose the texture of my painting, so that was something that was happening when I did bring it into Photoshop. So I decided to like scrap using Photoshop and just directly put them into Procreate and using textured brushes to kind of fix any of these like pieces or any gaps that you see where you can like see the white of the paper. So this is the first four, and then this is the fifth and final painting, all scanned in. Again, as you can see, there's some like white gaps that you can see. There's certain things I needed to fix and like fill in. And I also wasn't sure if I wanted to, when I was painting this specific piece, I was unsure if I wanted to add painted detail or just bring it in digitally. I ended up just going fully digital, like I just did the flat color, and then afterwards added the windows and doors and pathways. So these are the finished pieces, and then next I have the final PNGs and like what I will be delivering to the client. This is the first one. This is the first forest scene. You can still very much see the texture, and when I scrapped Photoshop, I decided to go in with a textured brush, fix anything that might have like looked off or like wasn't something I couldn't really get even with like a detailed brush. So I went in, added texture, and then um did some shading just to really give it more of that like characteristic that I'm looking for, to still not make it look as flat. So like I wanted the flat color, but I also really wanted more texture. Texture is a big word in this project. For this second piece, I decided, same thing. I fixed it up. I kind of added the shading. I really love the texture on these bushes down here. Like it almost like naturally just added shading, so I didn't have to add that much extra. So I have shading under each bush, and then that overlapping issue that I was having with the paint, I managed to fix without Photoshop. So again, I brought it in with a textured brush. I just color matched and I kind of tried to blend it all together so that it still looks hand painted. But as you can see, I like solidified it. It looks a lot cleaner. It looks a lot nicer while still, keeping that hand painted look. And for the backyard scene, I I think this is probably one of my favorites as well. I mean, all of them, but like this one in particular, the texture on the grass and the fence just like really came through. And with the trees in the background, I did the same thing as I did in the forest scenes. I added the shading between each branches and on along the window of that house and like the porch that you see. I just added like a very subtle shade just to kind of have it pop, give it more of that like three-dimensional look, even though it is just a flat painting. Um, there's more shading. This one's a little bit more bare, um, as there's just like a pool, a seesaw, and like some bushes just to give open space for like the animation on top. I was thinking like there's, like a group of kids like maybe sitting down, hanging out, talking to each other, or they're in the pool, or they just got out. So like I wanted to not put too much in there to like kind of distract from the main animation. Okay, so in this piece, in this scene, it's a zoomed in version of the street in the cul-de-sac, and I wanted to not have this one be as simple. I wanted to kind of make it obvious that kids live here, so I added two bikes, some sports equipment, a bowl, and you know, I tried to go heavy on the texture with this one. I try to give the asphalt that asphalt look, like it's not always perfectly even. It's like somewhat scuffed up and like, cars drive over it, so it's like not going to be perfect. And then with the cement, I like the cemented sidewalk. I really love the like hues of blue that came in through the gray and like the paint strokes. They like really came through. And so I kind of didn't really need to add too much to like retexturize it or add more texture. Like it kind of already just really came through. So I added the bikes, the sports equipment, and then just some shading as well as like the lines along the sidewalk. to make it look like an actual sidewalk. This is the final and fifth setting. You can see it is slightly darker, or just the hue is like different compared to the initial scanned in piece. I did want it to look like a night. It's like the sun is setting, and like the lights are turning off. The kids are already all inside, getting ready for like dinner or something. So I darkened it a little bit. I like layered purple on top of it digitally and like multiplied it to kind of give it that like shaded look. I don't really know how to explain it, but like, the sun is setting. It's no longer that bright out. Um, and so then I added the pathways, the doors, garage doors. Again, not too overly detailed that it takes away, as this would just be a scene that you're kind of just passing over. It's gonna transition from like the previous scene to like this and then into the next scene. And I also wanted to, you know, make it obvious that these houses are alive and there's people living there and like everyone's off doing their own thing in their own house. So like I added the windows, I brightened them and I diffused them a little bit to make them look or I blurred them to like have the window light coming out and you can like see it along these bushes. You can see where it's like highlighting the bushes on the outside. So just to give it more of that realistic look, again, as in previous ones, I added the lines along the sidewalk. I added shading along the trees, along the fence. I added the lines. And this one's a little bit more simple compared to the rest, as it is pretty zoomed out. So I feel like I didn't need to go that depth into the detail or that deep into the detail. And that is the final deliverables. Um, I do overall feel that my project turned out well, and I am very proud and very happy with this. I feel like this is definitely something I can add to a portfolio and present with confidence. What went well for me was the fact that I fully developed my ideas through sketchbooking instead of just trying to immediately go for it, which is something that I've learned in the past doesn't go well because then things don't work out or I experiment on the final pieces or on a canvas or, I just go for it and then it doesn't turn out how I wanted it or how I anticipated. So, sketchbooking was a huge part of this project to really solidify how I wanted to move forward, how I wanted my colors to be mixed, the color palettes, the textures, and just the overall characteristics of, the trees or like the fencing, the houses, how I wanted them to look. So, what didn't go well, I can't necessarily say anything went completely wrong. I think for me, one of the challenges was just color mixing and like maintaining the same colors. So, say I had to pause and, I'd get distracted or I was doing laundry at one point. So, I was like in this piece, particularly like halfway through the grass, and I like ran out of paint. And so I was like, well, I'll go, throw in the next load of laundry and then come back. And so having to remix was a little bit difficult because I wanted to, even if it wasn't the exact same shade, I wanted to obviously make it exact enough that it wasn't a very harsh line between the grass. So I did not wash my paint palette at all. I like kept it the same so that I can go back and color match and like make sure I was mixing all the same colors, making sure they all looked the same. So if I had to reuse that same color, it would be exact. And all these pieces correlate together and they don't look like five different pieces, but they all look like they belong in the same world, in the same universe, same neighborhood. So that was something I think was more of a challenge, and not that it didn't really go well, but just was challenging to maintain along the project. What I learned about myself as a designer is that with proper time management and proper planning, I can really succeed in a project I can set my mind to or something that is like required of me because I do have issues with time management. It's something I've always struggled with. I've always been someone to work, work, work. I burn myself out and then I kind of slack until the last minute because I pushed myself too hard. And then now I'm like waiting until the end to like continue and finish something. So that's something I've learned that time management and planning are very big and very important for me. And then as a project manager, um, same thing. It was just like a lot of time management and planning and keeping on top of the schedule and like the due dates and like the check-ins as part of the project along the way, like the presentations. I'm very big on my planner. I love my planner. I live for my planner. So like keeping up with the due dates kind of helped me plan my time a little bit better and like my time management was a lot better and I was able to like plan working along this project as well as like on other assignments for other classes. It just kind of helped me manage the way that I needed to. So yeah, that is my senior project.